Hey everyone, and welcome to Q&A. My name is Bill. I'm the company's expert, and today, Jan Mendelssohn, if I'm saying that correctly, I hope, Jan Mendelssohn writes, "Recruiters keep ghosting me after I apply. Why does this happen?" Well, excellent question, Jan. This is something that a lot of people are dealing with right now. It's an ongoing source of stress and confusion. The recruiter ghosted me. What does this mean? I'm going to cover the candidate's perspective on this because a lot of people have concerns about it, a lot of confusion. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm also going to cover the recruiter's perspective of what's going on with the recruiter when this occurs. Okay, so let's dive in. So hopefully everybody knows what ghosting is, right? That's where you have a kind of a two-way conversation going. Could be over voicemail, over the phone, over email, over text. And all of a sudden, one party just stops responding, right? In this case, a candidate applies for a job and they've got a two-way conversation going with the recruiter. Maybe the candidate has even come in for an interview or two. And all of a sudden, the recruiter stops responding to them, okay? Now, unfortunately, this is an increasingly common situation, especially as we go further and further into the future. We're finding that this is happening more and more. It's becoming the new normal, unfortunately. And it's leaving a lot of people, a lot of candidates, stressed out and confused over what exactly is going on and why. So let's talk about that. I mean, a big effect this has for a lot of candidates is they feel confusion, right? Yeah, maybe if you're watching this, maybe you can relate if this has happened to you. You feel confusion, you feel frustration, you feel anger, and a lot of people take, it's a shot to their self-esteem, and you feel rejected, and you don't understand why. Like I don't know what part is worse for a lot of people. Is it the rejection, or it's the confusion in why this happened? Like, am I doing something wrong? Am I unemployable? Is something seriously wrong with me that people just stop dealing with me? Not only am I not getting the job, but it's perceived as being very rude, right? And depending on the type of person you are, you can take this very, very personally. Because let's examine this for a second. If it's done a certain way, and somebody says, "Oh yeah, I will get back to you Tuesday at 2 p.m. or something," and then Tuesday at 2 p.m. comes and goes, and you hear nothing, and then you try and call them, and you can't get in touch with them, or maybe that they are at work, they're at the office, but they're just not initiating any kind of contact with you, and that continues. That is, for a lot of people, that's confusing, and it's rude. I mean, let's be honest, it's a lie. If somebody says, "I will get back to you," and then they don't, I mean, we're used to that being kind of normal, but really let's look at it technically, it's a lie. And I know that some candidates, maybe some of the more introverted candidates, the people that, rules are rules, those kinds of candidates, they actually expect people to literally do what they say, and they take it very, very badly when people don't. Okay, so this is the effect it's having on people. Now, for the candidates, first of all, I want to say it's not your fault, okay? This, like I said, is becoming the new normal. In the vast majority of cases, you are not doing anything that is bad or is a trigger for this kind of behavior. Okay, so that's kind of the first thing you need to understand. A lot of people just assume that they've done something wrong or they're not doing something correctly to warrant this kind of treatment, and that's just not the case. Okay, this happens to most people, actually. If you don't know that already, this is becoming very, very common. This happens to most people. And the thing about a job search is that, it's not about whether you've done something good or you've done something bad. It's a very serendipitous process. You just happen to have the skills and traits that this organization over here just happens to be looking for at this exact time. Okay, that's the job search process. And there's a lot of probability and random chance involved in this. Okay, so if something doesn't work out, in the vast majority of cases, it's simply because of that. Okay, so don't take it personally. Okay, now that being said, let's talk about this kind of behavior. I've been asked the question a couple of times in YouTube video comments and things. People were saying like, I haven't heard anything after 5 days or after 3 days or after 4 weeks. What does this mean? I would say in the vast majority of cases, after 5 days, if the recruiter hasn't responded after 5 days, chances are it's not going to work out, unfortunately. And that's what you can just assume. Now, obviously there's exceptions to that, but in most cases, that's kind of what it means. This is assuming that the recruiter hasn't gone on vacation and things like that. There's also something called soft ghosting. At least I call it soft ghosting. It's where communication doesn't cease abruptly, but you might have gone for a couple of interviews and you're having a dialogue with the recruiter, and you're asking about the position, and then they tell you, oh, the position is on hold, right? On hold. And which really means it's code for we have eliminated you from the running. So they are communicating, but they're essentially shutting you down, shutting your application down, and not explaining what's going on. So I know if you count that as ghosting also, some people do. The bottom line is that if you're a candidate, unfortunately, you have to expect this. Okay, you have to expect this kind of behavior. And there's a variety of reasons for it, but don't take it personally. Okay, this happens to everybody. Now, in some cases, you may have dodged a bullet, because although there are exceptions to this, in a lot of cases, often, you are getting a taste of that organization's corporate culture. And if they're okay with their recruiters, who are essentially their representatives, using this method of communication, and that's just business as usual for them, chances are that's kind of a toxic place to work. It's not a situation you want to really get into. So you may have dodged a bullet. Job search is a numbers game. If you have, these days it's like a 1% chance, or in the neighborhood of 1% chance of getting a job that you apply for when you apply for a job posting. Because there's so many candidates, when 200 people apply for a job, statistically, each person has a 0.5% chance of getting that job, right? And if that's what's going on, it's a numbers game. The more jobs you apply for, the more your chance of being hired. It's just that simple. So that's the reality. Don't get too emotionally tied up over this. Just keep moving and keep applying for more jobs. Now, another aspect of this is sometimes people will say, well, what you could do is you could contact somebody else at the organization. So if the recruiter has stopped talking to you and you don't know why, what you could try and do is contact somebody else. So you could talk to a different recruiter, or you could contact the recruiter's boss, or you could contact a different employee, like maybe a manager or something at the organization. Now, there's kind of two sides to this. I've done a video that I will put a link to in the description, where I actually got a job many years ago, and in the hiring process, the recruiter had ghosted me, and I'd done a whole bunch of interviews and stuff, and then all of a sudden nothing. And I had done an interview with not just the recruiter, but there was more than one person interviewing me in the job interview, and there were other people there. So what I did is I reached out to another person that I had interviewed with at that company. In this case, it was the hiring manager, and I'd said, like, what's going on? I haven't heard anything. Are we still in business, or what's up? And they had said, oh, well, the recruiter that you were dealing with has actually left the company. So that's why they're not responding, because they're no longer here. And I'd said, okay, well, are we still in business, or is that the end of it? And they said, no, we can continue. So I said, great. So we picked up the process. I picked up the process just with a different contact person at the organization. And in that case, it worked out. I got the job. So it is possible that this could work, but I would say, I mean, I don't have any data on this, but just anecdotally from hearing experiences with former students and things, chances are it's probably not going to work. If the recruiter's on vacation or the recruiter left the company, then it probably will. But I think in most cases, it's not for those reasons that you were ghosted. It's because you've been eliminated from the running. So as long as you're not emotionally distraught over, being ghosted, I would say, you could try this, but with suitably low expectations. Okay, so that's kind of the recruiter's perspective. Now, the candidate's perspective. Let's talk a little bit about the recruiter and what's going on with recruiters when they're ghosting people. Now, I teach recruiters at a university, okay? And it's kind of a double-edged sword. I mean, recruiters are getting hundreds and hundreds of candidates applying for every position that they're posting. That's kind of normal. And unfortunately, that's a very high volume of communication they would have to do. And the other thing is that the vast majority of the communication you'd be engaged in would be delivering bad news, telling people that, of the 100 people that applied for a job, you have to communicate with 99 of them and say, sorry, we've decided to eliminate you and go with somebody else. So you're delivering bad news, and candidates who are rejected can be very defensive, very hostile, and it's seen by a lot of recruiters as a no-win situation. And they feel like, okay, I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't. So I might as well do the thing that's less work. Okay. And instead of communicating to somebody that you didn't get the job, they just decide, okay, I'm just not going to communicate at all. And a lot of times recruiters tell themselves, oh, well, this should be expected. People will interpret that, as they should, that, it's a no, right? And people should realize this and they shouldn't get upset about it. But unfortunately, that's not the case. Now, the other element here is that there are some recruiters, especially executive recruiters, that have incredible interpersonal skills and communication skills and have a lot of charisma, and they're a pleasure to deal with. But unfortunately, there's, in my experience anyway, there's many more recruiters, especially at lower levels, that unfortunately don't have that level of interpersonal skills, communication skills, and charisma. And what this means is that, it's not a matter of time limitation. Like, it's not, a matter of, I don't have time to communicate with all my candidates. It's just a matter of, I choose to communicate in this way. I choose to ghost people. That's an active decision. It's not necessarily because I have to, it's because I feel it's the right thing to do. And unfortunately, although we are getting used to this kind of behavior, it is still not professional. And that's what a lot of recruiters don't always realize. I mean, you are creating a lot of negative goodwill. A lot of candidates understand it for what it is, but a lot of candidates don't, and they get very upset about this. And you are the representative of your organization. You're creating a lot of negative goodwill by communicating to people in this way. And, from a strategic HR perspective, that's just bad. What recruiters can do to eliminate this is, when you do the original job posting, is that you can write on the original job posting and say, like, look, if we select you, we will communicate with you. If you don't hear back from us, then, you're welcome to try applying for any of our other positions that we have, on this site or something like that, right? I mean, that's a far more professional way of doing it than just ceasing all communications with candidates, especially when you've already been talking to them and you just all of a sudden stop. That's just not professional. As much as we are getting used to operating that way, that's not the way to do things. And if you want proof of that, look at how a lot of executive recruiters do, they don't often treat CEO candidates and C-level candidates like that, or board level candidates. You don't usually see that. And there's a reason for that. It's because it's not professional. The other thing is that, just in my career, I've seen candidates that they don't know anything about an organization, about a certain company. And they go through a job application process and they get ghosted by a recruiter at that company. And that's the only experience that they've had with that organization. And so they've gone from having a sort of neutral perspective of that organization to having a very negative perception of them, just because the one experience they had was with a recruiter who ghosted them. And I've seen those people go to a competing company. They eventually get hired at a competing company, and the competing company says, well, one of our strategic goals is to put those guys out of business. And now the employee is all for that. They're saying, yeah, I don't really know much about them, but the only time I've dealt with them, they've been a bunch of jerks. So this is where the negative goodwill really comes back to bite people. So if you are a recruiter or you're running an HR department, you really want to assess your communication policies on this. Now, that's kind of the candidate's perspective, the recruiter's perspective. Bottom line is that if you're a candidate and you're watching this, you are awesome. You're doing everything fine. Okay. Just because you were ghosted, don't take that to mean that you did anything wrong. This is normal. Okay. You got to get back up on that horse. You got to not take it personally, and you got to accept this as just how recruiters communicate, unfortunately. So don't believe the turkeys that tell you that, or signal to you that you may be doing something wrong or that you're not a good candidate. How would they know? They don't know. Okay. So I hope this has helped. I wish you nothing but the best. Thank you for your attention, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.